Andrew Baxter. I'm the Director of Energy Transition at the Environmental Defense Fund. The Environmental Defense Fund is a climate change-focused nonprofit based in the US, but with offices all over the globe. And our prerogative is to work with stakeholders in government, industry, NGOs, and civil society to think about solutions that work towards solving the problem of climate change. I think it's all of the above. We have to reduce greenhouse gases from all anthropogenic sources, which takes us to many different sectors. Where my work concentrates itself is the early stage of the oil and gas energy transition. And one of the most immediate and actionable steps that stakeholders in the oil and gas industry can take is reducing methane emissions from their operations. MethaneSat, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Environmental Defense Fund, plans to launch a satellite in 2023. This satellite will orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, scanning around what we'll be looking at is around 80% of the global oil and gas industry, as well as other sources of methane emissions like agriculture, coal, waste. But with the oil and gas industry specifically, we'll be looking at where the infrastructure is, what do the methane emissions look like from space? And, well, that sounds really abstract. What's our product going to look like? The satellite is capable of looking at a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid, and in these large 200 kilometer swaths. So imagine your pixel is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. And we'll be able to tell you with an unprecedented level of accuracy for satellite measurement, not only what the methane concentration is there, but what the leak rate is there. So how many kilograms per hour of methane emissions that we're tracing back to that source in that grid. So it will be captured by a spectrometer that's mounted on a satellite, our satellite MethaneSat. And I think the stat that our chief scientist, Steve Hamburg, shared is there's 60 kilograms of glass in this satellite that's going to be taking in, is essentially, we look at the reflection of sunlight from the Earth, and the methane molecule absorbs that light in a very specific wavelength. And that helps us calculate the concentration, and we use an algorithm to calculate the leak rate based on wind data and meteorological data. But yeah, it's one of the most technologically advanced instruments for detecting methane emissions that will be orbiting the Earth. So that's one of the most unique aspects. All of this data is going to be free and publicly available. And that might sound quite scary for the oil and gas companies that we work so closely with. But the intent here is a shared objective, which is reduce methane emissions from the oil and gas operations. And so it's how can we provide actionable insight for the companies to go out to find and go out and address where the emissions are coming from. So while we have a publicly available data platform, we'll also be working with companies on how best they can digest that data into their own internal emissions management platforms so they can go out and fix these leaks and the vents in their field. Typically now part of companies' Scope 1 emission targets, and ADNOC actually announced yesterday on the 31st of October 2022 a 0.15% methane emissions intensity target that they want to reach by 2025. And honestly, that's one of the lowest targets that we see in industry, but other companies like Shell and BP and Exxon have similar targets, but it's amazing to see companies like ADNOC take really strict targets on methane emissions. And we hope that they're going to be able to work with tools like MethaneSat to be able to realize where the opportunities are, reduce the emissions, and then be able to report to their stakeholders that they've been able to address this problem. We hope to launch the satellite next year in 2023, and then start releasing data sort of 4 to 6 months after that. After that, it doesn't stop there. There are other capabilities of the satellite that we'll be able to bring online, such as scanning offshore locations and scanning locations that are over snow and ice. So the capabilities of the satellite will not stop at launch, not stop at 6 months, but we'll be able to continue growing those capabilities over time.